All right, today we're talking with Chris Staros, publisher at Top Shelf Productions, who I recently got an email from because I'm on the Top Shelf Productions email list where they talk about the books that they have coming out. But Chris has something new coming. He's doing a coaching service to help people that are trying to get published in the comics industry to help them get their work in the best shape possible so that when they show it to publishers, it looks professional. It's what they want to see. And we're going to be talking about that and a lot of different things. So Chris, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. So Top Shelf, you guys have been publishing since 1995, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I started my self-publishing stuff around 94, 95, and so did my partner Brett at the time. And then around 95, we met and we joined forces and formed Top Shelf and officially incorporated, started publishing 97, 98, and
Hmm.
doing it ever since, So it's been a long ride, but it's been a fun one.
Well, I saw some interesting thing that it's very unusual for people in the comics industry that you growing up, you didn't really read comics. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I was always a musician. I know it's hard to picture it from looking at me, but there was a time when I was young and I had hair and eyesight and, 80 pounds lighter, whatever. And I played in hard rock and heavy metal bands through the late 70s and early mid 80s and had a great time doing it. So I always wanted to get in the music business. Comics were no part of my life when I was younger. And when I retired from music in '89 from just massive hearing losses from playing metal for a decade, and was really kind of bored artistically, trying to figure out something to do.
Hmm.
I drove by this comic book shop every day. Finally walked in just to kill some time, and ended up picking up Alan Moore's V for Vendetta. And read it, I had this epiphany like I did when I heard my first Black Sabbath album when I was a kid. You know, um, I want to do this, like I want to get involved somehow. And so I knew I was never going to draw. And I found creative writing tedious, even though I could do it. So I didn't think that I would go that route either, being enjoyable. But it turned out that the editor and publisher world turned out to be something I evolved into and found my little niche.
Yeah, I can see the appeal of it because you can work a lot faster with a lot of different people, and Top Shelf has a very diverse catalog of. I mean, you ended up now you're one of Alan Moore's main publishers, so
Yeah, I mean, we published a lot of different things. Obviously, we're very proud of the elements that we've done, but I guess Top Shelf in general kind of reflects our taste, which is we like a lot of things that have a unique kind of cartoony art style to it, and stories that have a lot of subtext and heart, and those are kind of the things that we sort of look for. But we're open to all kinds of ideas. Ultimately, if the story is great and the art is great, why not?
yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll give lots of things a try.
So like, what was the development as a publisher when you started to get these, like, because you've published not just Alan Moore, but George Takei and John Lewis, like some pretty big names. So how did those come about? What was that
Well,
development?
I mean, Top Shelf was always very aggressive on the convention circuit. I traveled to a good 20 conventions a year for 20 years,
Hmm.
and got to meet a lot of people in person at these shows. We established relationships. So we were developing talent. Talent was coming to us. Obviously, we're not the only game in town. There's a lot of great publishers out there. So, we're all sort of in the mix together, and some stuff comes to us, some stuff goes to other people, and that's the way it should be. But over the time, my reputation grew, as doing literary works and some big works like From Hell and Blankets and Jeff Lemmire's Essex County and other kinds of books like that. And um, we became a destination for certain people with really good ideas, and that allowed us to court and play when certain projects were being tossed around. Now, it just so happens with March and John Lewis, he is in Georgia, I was in Georgia,
Hmm.
the some were made, and a relationship was formed there to bring March in to Top Shelf. And then March kind of spawned the George Takei project because they saw how well that project was handled. and wanted to do something in a similar vein. And we did another really big project with them. That was a very unique project, but also, you know, very popular and very important. Both books really reached outside of comics. Both books had very important messages, and they're very timely. And so, you know, they're out there doing good work to this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So, but in addition to like these big names, you still look at submissions, right? Top
Oh
shelf.
yeah, I mean, so funny story. When I was a musician, when I was a teenager, I used to just destroy me that every time I sent a cassette tape to a record company, I put a lot of them in little envelopes and mailed them away. Then not only did they not see the genius and the future that was before them, but that they never responded at all, right? You know, no interest in it. You know, for the most part, I wasn't ready for that. And, you know, when we were one time in the mid 80s ready, we could have gone somewhere, but, you know, no, it didn't happen. So I remember making a promise to myself when I was a teenager that if I was ever in a position of authority in the arts world and people sent me stuff in the mail, I would look at it and I would respond. And so, you know, lo and behold, I ended up in a self-appointed position starting a public. People started sending me stuff. And so actually the very first thing I do every day is look at all the submissions that come in, write letters back to everybody. And I heard that commitment. Now, occasionally if a submission comes in that says to whom it may concern and is CC'd 100 different people on it, then, and it's not like it applies to us that much, that may be one I ignore. But for the most part, if the letter says Dear Chris, then you know, I'm gonna take a look at it and try to get back. You know, I
Yeah.
guess so. And submissions are still open at Top Shelf. You know, you can go to the Top Shelf Comics website /submissions, and there are guidelines, which basically says email us a download link. It's pretty simple. And so people are always welcome to submit things to us. But you know, because of time constraints, I really never had that much time to dive in to the merits and the problems and the deep issues with each submission or each pitch package. And so that got me thinking, you know, with us all this downtime during COVID and, you know, a lot of my weekends being free and evenings being free, I thought, you know what, I might try and see how it works out. A little coaching service where I dive deep with individuals who really want to find out how to make their pitches better and make their graphic novels better. You know, to do what I do for people inside Top Shelf, outside of Top Shelf as well. And so it's unrelated to Top Shelf. It's just a private little service, you know, for people if they really want some coaching on the side. But you know, it's been going on for a month or so now, and it's actually been quite popular. So I'm pretty booked up for the
Nice.
next couple of months, and then I'll let people know that I'm open again, and and probably book a couple more months. So I'm really enjoying it. You know, like without conventions and everything going on right now, I'm actually being able to sit down and have, you know, 1 hour conversations with a lot of really cool cartoonists all over the world and sort of almost like have a virtual beer with them, you know, like
Yeah, yeah.
we're on and really talking deep about stuff, you know. And plus, you know, on the weekends, I'm taking the time to read their books, take some notes, and help them, you know, get some stuff into shape. So anyway, it's been fun, and I've enjoyed that.
No, cool. Well, I'll have a link down below for people that are interested in checking that out. Because I mean, my impression from reading different publishers' submission guidelines is that one of the things that they don't want is like they don't want to put a team together. They want a finished product. They want to either see like that you've self-published something, like something that they can see, or just send like pages online, a website, or whatever that they can actually see the finished product. So is that like a major? Do you still get a lot of like problematic submissions like that that are just not
Well, I
complete?
mean, it is a problem when, you know, one of the best jobs to get in comics is the writing gig, right? Because you could write several books a year, work with all the best artists that are, you know,
Mhm.
hot, and you know, and have several things cooking at the same time. Whereas an artist, you got to spend a whole year drawing a graphic novel, and you got to live in a cave to do it, you know. And it's it's easier if you're a writer, but the writing gig is the hardest one to break into. It's very hard to break into the comics industry as a writer because nobody wants to read scripts, you know, and a lot of people don't want to have to put together writers and artists. Now,
Right.
if the writer is well known and they know that if they pay for an artist to draw a book, the book will sell well enough to cover the artist's fees. But it costs a lot of money to to pay for art on a book that's compartmentalized like that. So on the indie circuits and creative circuits, oftentimes it's better if, you know, the writer artists come in as a team, or if the book is drawn by a single cartoonist who writes and draws their own work and so forth, you know. But we do sometimes put teams together, or sometimes teams come to us. But then the opposite problem can happen too, where maybe a writer attaches themselves to an artist that's not very good, and now the project not going to get off because the team's not the right team. You know?
That must be an awkward conversation when you have a really good writer, but like you need to jettison the artist.
Well, right. In life, there's four combinations, right? You love somebody and you love their work. That's easy. You hate somebody and you hate their work. That's easy, right? And then the other two, which is you love them but don't really like their work, and you know, you don't love them but you love their work. And those are the things that make life more complicated. And you have to figure out how you're going to address those issues as human beings on friendship terms and honesty, and on, do you want to work with somebody you don't really care for, even though they're good? You know, these are things you have to address in life. It's not simple. It's gray a lot of times. You know?
Yeah. So typically, would you say, like, how many submissions are you getting each day? Is it like a lot?
I get about 5 or 6 a day, which, you know,
that's manageable. Yeah.
That's a couple thousand a year, you know.
Yeah.
And probably of those blind submissions, we pick up maybe 1 or 2 of those, because, you know, a third of our line is with big guns, you know, like you know, Alan Moore, Jeff Lemire, something like that. A third of our line is all our really strong talent that we've developed over the years, not quite stratosphere yet. And then a third of our line is new talent, you know, people that I want to break. So, you know, I mean, we publish about 20 books a year. So if, you know, rough math, 6 or 7 new artists a year that we can break. And so out of that unsolicited pile, I might find 1 or 2 that are absolute gems. And the others are people that I've been following online, or meeting at shows, or seeing their works and courting them and watching them develop over time. You know, maybe they did a couple minis I thought were great, but they weren't quite there yet. And then next year I see them at SPX or MoCA or TCAF, and I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing right now, you know. And and then, you know, maybe they'd want to do something with us, you know. Obviously, people can just do stuff themselves. They don't really necessarily need a publisher, but sometimes it works out well to have some people working with them.
And then, like, what's the typical, I mean, this is very general, I know, but like what is it that separates the ones that stick out, and what are the big problems that you see with a lot of the ones that you just immediately say, no, this is not going to work?
I don't know. I mean, you know, there's a lot of really good stuff up there, and sometimes it's just not right for Top Shelf, right? It would be published at another house or whatever. So I don't end up not publishing some things just because it's not good. There's a lot of great stuff I have to turn down just because it's not right for us, you know, in our niche where we've defined ourselves in the sort of space of comics, you know. And then, you know, really good stuff is really good in very different ways. And often stuff that's not quite ready yet is often not quite ready yet in very similar ways, you know, where the artist hasn't drawn enough pages yet, so their stuff's a little wonky, and then the anatomy and stylization of the characters, the layouts, the camera angles, you know, are just not consistent enough for each page to be wholly complete and rocking the whole way. And if they were to do a 100 project, they'd probably be 2 or 3 times the cartoonist by the end of it as they are now. You know, artists at that stage of the game, I recommend, you know, doing mini comics and things to really hone your storytelling skills and get your art chops up before you embark on a really big project. And then, you know, storytellers, it's the same thing. You know, there's so many things you have to imbue into a good story, like really strong characters that are unique and that are true to themselves, but also change or evolve based on the events of the story. You need a really good page turning plot, some reason to want to keep you moving, and and some subtext, some reason for telling a story. And those things are very difficult to do all at the same time if you're starting out. I mean, you have to tell several stories, beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end, before all those cylinders start firing at the same time. Metaphorically to music, the first time you pick up the guitar, you're just lucky to put one finger on the same string and not have it, sort of fart out or anything like that. Later, you're playing all over the place because all that stuff's just after years and years of practice is, and buried inside you somewhere, and it's hard to almost deconstruct it at that point. And writers the same way, and artists, they have to, a lot has to be learned and become unconscious, before it's ready.
Yeah. Like, since you've been working since 95, I'm sure you've seen like a lot of the changes that have happened in both. Would you say it's more difficult now to make it into comics, or maybe make it a living in comics? Maybe it's easier to reach people like through online stuff, but is it easier to, more difficult to make a living in comics?
I think the arts has always had the same problem all the time, which is it's always hard to get out there and get noticed. And it's also hard to start making a living at it or get rich and famous from it if that's your end goal,
Right.
It's just hard. It's always been hard to break out. You have to really, I know, like sometimes I'll teach classes at universities and stuff. And the first question I ask, not for ego purposes at all, because if the question definitely does not boost my ego, which is how many of you people know who I am or know who, and I will get, 15%, 30%, occasionally 50% of the room knowing it, but not usually. And I'll go, well, there you go. I've been in this game for 30 years, had some million sellers, have a reputation of being a really good guerrilla marketer in this business, and none of you know who I am or what I do. I said, that's what you're up against. You're going to have to spend every day of your life working really hard to get on the map. And 10 years later, you might just, be somewhere with it, but it's not an easy game. You've really got to be dedicated if you want to break into the arts in any medium.
Yeah, yeah. When I talked with Benjamin Mara, we were talking a little about kind of using Instagram to publish a strip and kind of build a following there to promote your work. Would you say, like, if you get a submission and let's say they link to their Instagram or whatever, and you see that they have, like 20,000, 30,000 followers, are you more likely to like take a look at their work and like see, like, because this guy or girl, or not girl, woman has an audience already, so like are you more likely to like consider them? And
well, strictly speaking, I've always been an art over commerce person. I have to worry about commerce because the operation's big enough where I have to try to make sure that it sustains itself, and survival was always the name of the game, not success. We were always trying to survive all these years, so to speak. But so I would look at the story and the art first. And if I love it, then if I believe in it, then I think, okay, now how are we going to get this thing out there?
right.
You look at the social media presence to go, okay, these people are juggernauts and will really be able to help get the word out. That makes my job easier. Or these people have no social media followings, and this is going to be a real sort of breakout move. Publishing, we're going to have to work hard together to get them on the map. In that sense. But what you're talking about is important for creators. You have two ways to get noticed as you're sort of developing your own chops and self-publishing your first two things. One is at conventions and tabling and selling your stuff and hanging out in the, hotel bars afterwards and getting to know everybody and make friends, connections with everybody, meet the editors and publishers as well. And then you have the whole online presence, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Tumblr, and what you use those for and how you cultivate an audience there. Ideally, they would be posting their works in progress, featuring some stuff, also commenting on life, commenting on other people's work, developing sort of a community attitude there with it. And nowadays with things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and other things, people who have a little bit of a following can self-finance projects, and bypass the whole need for a publisher to begin with, or at least set a really good foundation for proving to a publisher the book has an audience, and once they do their Kickstarter, then lining up with the publisher to actually take on a wider distribution of the book.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, I've seen even, established writers and artists go on to do projects that just, for whatever reason, they go through Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and so it's the field seems to have changed quite a bit, and like there's a lot of options nowadays. But what about you? You mentioned conventions. Are you planning any this year? Are they? What's going on
This
with
year
that?
we are. This year, IDW and Top Surf are not doing any conventions, just for safety reasons. And
Right.
fortunately, I've had both of my vaccines, and I'm ready to get out into the world again. I think the cons are they've got to figure out, what the rules are in the states where they are. How many people can they let in? Will people have to wear a mask, or can they not? Or how do you handle a crowd around a booth where somebody famous shows up and everybody packs like sardines around them? Well, can you operate like that right now? I don't know. So I think we're slowly starting to see the light of day and head back to some kind of normalcy, but it's just hard to tell, that. But right now the plan is to start doing cons again next year. And so I look forward to, the Comic-Con in San Diego and the Small Press Expo and MoCA in New York and Cake in Chicago and TCAF in Toronto, and trying to get out there and, mix and mingle and sell some fun books.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of things you can do online, but there are still some wonderful things that only in person allows. So I think a lot of people are missing the energy of conventions.
Oh yeah, and I think that's why I started that coaching service too, because I just miss talking to people, talking
Right.
shop. And I actually feel like, I think I booked over 80 of these sessions right now, and I finished about 30 of them, and
Oh,
some of
wow.
them are going to be repeat people because they're going to working on second drafts of things now, and we're going to want to come back and look at it and talk about it some more and just help refine it over time. But now there's those 30 people that I'm really going to look forward to seeing at a show, and talk with them and have a beer with them after hours and see how they're doing. I feel like a bunch of new friends here, so.
The people that you have coached so far, like where would you say most of them are at in the journey? Like some people like very close, or some people like you're gonna need a few more years. Like
It's a full spectrum. The idea is take everybody exactly where they are and try
Mhm.
to move forward, and be very supportive of their work and be encouraging and be constructive and try to move it forward. The idea is, as an editor, a relationship you have with an artist is to be their private confidant, to work with them on stuff, um, and point out things that you think that the readers might be confused over or feel are not refined enough, to try to take formative works and turn them into definitive ones. And so sometimes the editors miss the boat and are giving you not helpful suggestions. Other times they really are. Mostly I think it is like if there's stuff you've been worried about in the back of your head and the editor's calling you out on it, then it's like, okay, you got 2 votes in the room that needs to be addressed, that issue dealt with. And then the other stuff is like, no, you missed the point. I wanted to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy that. I'll back off on that point, that sort of thing. And it's sort of a give and take relationship. At the end of it, the person sort of has their marching orders on what to do to make things better. I mean, ideally, I've been trying to help make their graphic novel read and look better, and other times to help them get their pitches in shape, the stuff that they want to shop around, and where I think the hits and misses are on their presentation or on the quality of the stuff they're shopping around to begin with.
Because I'm sure other publishers and people in the industry, do you like specifically recommend like publishing paths for these people? Like say,
I have, yeah. In some cases it might be our own houses that I
yeah.
say, hey, why don't you submit this to the official channels and we can take a look at it there. Or, but yeah, I'm not very possessive about things. I know that some cartoonists and writers and artists really have a destination they have in mind. Like they've always to publish something Image or Dark Horse or at Oni or at Fantagraphics or Drawing World. And sometimes their favorite publisher is Top Shelf or IDW. You know, it's a full spectrum, right? And so, you know, I kind of know what those houses like and don't like to a certain extent, obviously not as good as they do themselves. But, you know, I've been around a while and I know people there and I know the kind of books that they put out. So if somebody has a particular goal in mind, I don't mind telling them what I think they need to do to get it in shape for them. Or sometimes I'll say, you know, this house might be a good place for you to try. Sure, you know, I'll make some recommendations.
Nice. Well, it sounds like a really good service. I think I hope people take advantage of it. And I will have a link down below for anyone that is serious about getting into the comics industry and getting their work published out there. I think. I mean, like, what? I mean, I know this the answer myself, kind of, but I'd like to hear you say, like, what are the
Yeah.
advantages of using a big publisher? I mean, to me, it seems like um, I think you're more likely maybe to have an advance and maybe better marketing that you can't do on your own and a broader reach. Would you say those are the big advantages?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, for example, like anybody can make a soft drink and then there's Coca-Cola, right? And so brands do matter and they do help, you know, and oftentimes the biggest problem is distribution, right? How do you get
Right.
your book in all the stores? So companies like Top Shelf and others who have been in the game for a long time, that have very deep distribution networks and channels, when they put out a book because it has that logo on it, and because we know all the buyers and we have things set up, we can get that book placed in libraries, in a good placement at Amazon.com, in the brick and mortar stores, in the comic shops, and get it in front of people's faces where a person on their own might not. You know, they might just be selling it from their tables and online, you know, and also we have connections with, like a lot of people can, you know, with Comixology and iBooks and Google and other digital places, we can distribute things digitally as well and get things everywhere. Hopefully do some good marketing from the publisher in coordination with the cartoonists, who are often great marketeers on their own. And so they're banging the drums while we're banging the drums and we're banging together. And yeah, so sometimes a publisher can help. And also, you know, some people really like to do all the abilities themselves, and some people don't. So the people less inclined to handle all their own marketing, all their own printing, all their own shipping, then publishers are the place to go. And people who love all that stuff, well, then you can form your own imprint and do it all yourself.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's both options, but yeah, I think if you can have the option of using a big publisher, take it. I think it's um, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Oh, I had one final question.
Yeah.
This is a very specific Alan Moore question because you guys have been soliciting his Moon and Serpent bumper book of magic for years. Is that ever going to happen?
It is going to happen. And the good news is it is slowly getting in development. It's pretty much written. We're still working with some artists to start the drawing process on some of the sections. It's slow go, it has been, but it will see the light of day someday. I'm excited about it. But yeah, no, I'm not going to go on record and give you.
Give me a date
I,
for
it, it, will-
release date.
I won't make it, and I'll, you know.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, I just wanted to ask you about that because every time I go to your website, I see that I'm like coming soon.
I
I'm
am
like,
excited
when?
about it too. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm looking forward to
I
that.
get a lot of emails about that, and unfortunately, I have to tell people not quite yet.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for this interview.
Thank you.
It's I really enjoyed it, and once again, I'll have links below to all your stuff, and people can check out your service. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thanks, man.
All
Good to
right.
meet you.